I'm just going to pull the mask down so I can speak.
We all good, guys? Yeah. Can you individually identify yourselves, please, and your titles?
Sure. Stephen DiRienzo, warning coordination meteorologist with the National Weather Service in Albany.
And spell your first and last name.
Stephen, S-T-E-P-H-E-N, DiRienzo, D-I-R-I-E-N-Z-O.
And Brian Frugis, meteorologist at National Weather Service Albany, and it's B-R-I-A-N-F-R-U-G-I-S.
Hey, can you guys give us a kind of like a timeline of the cold fronts, what you guys were observing on radar, and the tornado warnings that came as a result? So kind of like,
Yeah,
like a picture?
Yeah, I can talk about that. We had a pretty strong cold front moving through yesterday with a huge temperature difference. We had temperatures ahead of the front in Litchfield County going up into the 60s, near 70. Well, about 25 to 30 miles away, it was still in the 40s to low 50s across eastern New York. So that temperature gradient created a pretty strong boundary for thunderstorms to develop along. And a group of supercell thunderstorms formed in eastern New York across the Catskills, and it moved across the mid-Hudson Valley and towards northwest Connecticut. And as those thunderstorms started to move into the area, they were showing signs of rotation, especially on the southern end of the storm near Kent and down towards Bulls Bridge. And we had several severe thunderstorm warnings issued and a tornado warning. And as a result, we've had numerous reports of trees down, especially across eastern New York, but also into parts of the Kent area. And it was some of those winds definitely looked like they were pretty noteworthy.
And so based on what you saw in New York and here in Connecticut, what are you guys thinking as far as what caused it, whether it's straight line winds, thunderstorm related, or possible tornado related?
Well, obviously it was all thunderstorm related. I want to map all the damage. We've been out taking pictures and surveying the damage across the areas that saw damage. It could be tornadic. It's again, until we map it, get back to the office and have some folks in the office review some things. We're probably not going to make a determination yet. We'll have a determination out before 5 o'clock today, but it certainly could have been tornadic damage. Both cases down near Bulls Bridge here in Litchfield County and further west in Amenia and Dutchess County.
And what are you guys looking for when you come out to survey potential tornado damage?
Usually a convergent wind pattern. Sometimes just trees falling, across path or across each other along the path. It can be other things. I've seen debris stuck to all four sides of a building, things like that. So it depends. Video helps. Sometimes you stop by somebody's house and they took a video. We did see some video today from folks, but nothing that would indicate a tornado. So we'll have to,
We also try to talk to the people that experienced the storm, talk to the homeowners, see their perspective on what they experienced too. So that definitely helps when we're doing our analysis of what went on.
Right, and like I said, some of them showed us video today and pictures and whatnot, and nothing they showed us indicated a tornado. So.
And speaking of challenges, you have the topography we have here. What makes that kind of difficult to determine straight line wind versus potential tornado activity?
Well, one of the problems in this area is just all the narrow, windy roads up and down the hills. You're looking for like a damage path for a tornado a lot of times, and so you're driving like every back road, snaking around the hills, trying to, the tornado went this way, and you're trying to go along, perpendicular to the path, to try and see where it may have tracked, based on where the radar said it should be, and where we got reports of damage. So.
Based on the time of the year, based on the location, would you guys say that this is pretty routine stuff, or would you say that this is indicative of a higher frequency of storm damage?
Well, I don't know. We've seen April storms before. I think this is the first time I've ever surveyed the day after in the snow, though. I think we've had storms in April, but it usually didn't get quite as cold as fast right behind the cold front. I mean, yesterday was a really severe, clash of air masses. We went from summer to winter in a few hours, basically. So,
can you explain to me, as a non-meteorologist, straight line wind, does that indicate a tornado or no?
Well, no, not normally. Normally, every thunderstorm, usually when the rain and the hail falls out of it, it brings down, a downrush of wind. It's usually determined a microburst. There's some really neat video you can watch. It's almost like a water balloon falling out of the sky and splatting on the ground. And then when that wind hits the ground and spreads out, it causes damage. It accelerates as it hits the ground. And so usually if a storm is moving in a certain direction, that wind comes down from the thunderstorm and moves in a similar direction, and all the trees kind of fall in one direction, or they usually tend to diverge. The way the damage is in a divergent pattern. Tornado usually has more of a convergent pattern. You kind of notice a rotation in the damage pattern. So sometimes it's hard to tell because trees sway back and forth and they fall in different directions, but other times it's easier to understand. So today's stuff was not as easy to understand whether or not it was a tornado. We were also on unfamiliar roads and up and down hills, and we like to map things before we make sure everything is in a good path before we make a determination of whether or not it was a tornado.
Yeah. And it also the other thing is that the winds were weaker with the straight line. The straight line winds can be just stronger than a tornado. Just like I said, the way the wind came out of the storm, what type of pattern it was showing. So, but the speeds and the damage potential, whether it's straight line or tornadic, can be exactly the same type of speeds.
Oh, right. The EF scale for tornadoes is EF0 to EF5, and the downbursts from thunderstorms can have winds up to EF2 strength. So, yeah, it can be very, very powerful. I mean, we've seen structural damage, before from straight line wind just from downbursts. So. That's why we issue severe thunderstorm warnings, because they do tend to knock down a lot of trees, and they can knock trees onto houses and cause damage to structures. So.
And so while you guys are trying to come up with your guess or hypothesis of what happened, looking back on what did happen, when you can see, are there any parameters that make you guys feel confident or less confident that a tornado could have occurred?
Well, obviously here in Bulls Bridge we had the radar couplet. That's where the radar signature looked most favorable for the storms producing a tornado. But the damage was most extensive in Amenia, so and again the pattern was it comes down to looking at the damage was sporadic, and so you're trying to map it and trying to see if it was convergent or not. So it really takes some time to go over it. With everything being forested and all these rolling hills, it's very difficult to, it's not like, sometimes you can literally see, you'll look into the forest and you'll see a path that looks like somebody took a lawnmower through the forest. It's very obvious a tornado path went through an area. But other times it's not, and today's one of those days where it's not. So.
And do you have roughly off the top of your head, the distance that the path is that you're trying to survey?
I don't know. How far was that in Bulls Bridge, do you think? I mean, neither one was probably more than a mile long.
Yeah, short distances, yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't neither was very long path length.
And they were not on a straight line or anything that you could tell. I know with the windy roads, it's tough.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I think we took a lot of pictures, and we wrote down street addresses, and we like to map things just to see how straight, what kind of a path it was.
But yeah, the damage was definitely broken. There wasn't a clear path.
Right, a continuous path, except maybe that one subdivision that we went into where the damage was really extensive.
In New York.
Right.
And that was in Amenia?
In Amenia, in New York, correct.
And Brian, you were on the radar last night, and you spoke about the steep temperature gradient, but talk a little bit more about what makes forecasting severe weather events like this in the early spring with so many different parameters. What makes it so difficult?
Yeah, well, it's for starters, you don't have the same type of air mass that you would have in the summer with the a 90-degree day with the really sticky dew points. While it was mild yesterday, it wasn't the super humid weather, so that limits the amount of instability that the storm has to work with. Typically the thunderstorms wouldn't get as strong, they wouldn't get as tall as maybe as in the heat of the summer. But because we had such a powerful storm system moving through, that kind of made up for that in a little bit and helped to still give enough fuel to make them some strong to severe thunderstorms. So, that's one of the challenges of the environment, but also just the movement of the storms. Their distance from the radar could make that a little harder for us You know, our radar is up near the Albany area, so it's quite a distance from northwest Connecticut. So the storms are a little bit more difficult to see on the radar here than if they were, say, across, you know, more of upstate New York.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Very much. We appreciate your time.
No problem.
All right, yeah, we're going to try and head back now.
Okay.
We started early this morning.
Yeah,
so-
I'll let you drive to